Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Black as night, erase death from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate make it right. I myself am strange and unusual.
Cast a circle, spark some incense, and grab a cup of tea, because it's time for the Cousins Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. Welcome back to the Coven. Super excited for today's episode because we're going to be talking about the Mandela effect. This is by far one of my favorite topics from the past few years. I've fallen into the rabbit hole and not been able to dig myself out. So it takes talking about it with other people for me to be like, okay, back to earth, stop getting into this cult. But I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun topic. I'm excited. But first, we wanted to just dive into cauldron topics.
Yay!
And I know you did some fun research for this week's cauldron topic. So what did you want to talk about today?
Yes, so I'm going to talk about candle magic.
Yes, I love it.
I know. And I know we talked about it a few weeks ago on our divining episode. We were talking about divining with the candles, and that's kind of what candle magic is divining with the candle, but also just using the candle in a spell. So there is, in my opinion, there is a difference between divining and a spell, but you can do both with the candle. And like the majority of magic, candle magic has actually been around for thousands of years, and we're going to dig into it a little bit further. So in candle magic, just so for those newbies out there, I consider myself a newbie, even though I've been practicing magic for years, but just not by the book. Mm-hmm. And so when I think of candle magic, I'm just like, oh, you got to use the candle. But actually, you should be using a new candle each spell that you use, because to use candles can pick up the surrounding energy and also may not be as effective.
Right. And I was always taught that, let's say you're using this green candle for a magic, you in that one spell, you're putting your specific intention to it. So for the next one, you wouldn't want to use that old residual magic and spell. You just have to let that one go or burn it until it's done.
Yeah. And so that's what I like to do, is I like to burn it till it's done. But a lot of people said that sometimes they bury them or throw them out.
I do that. I usually, anytime my candles are at that point where it's like a taper candle, but that little last chunk, left in the candle holder, I'll take that outside, especially because I continuously have God and Goddess candles on my altar. So they're always silver or gold shiny ones, and I'll put those out by trees.
Gotcha.
I don't know. Is that polluting? I just thought about that.
I don't know. I thought that wax was biodegradable.
Okay.
So, but maybe if you were using a crappy candle, maybe. I don't know. It depends on what it's made out of.
Right? I was like, should I look into that?
Yeah, maybe just read the label. One of the tips that I came across too was that if you don't have the specific color of candle that's being asked for in the spell, you can substitute it with white. Mm-hmm. It's also a good idea when using any type of magic to make sure to protect yourself and your space by lighting a black candle to absorb the negative energy before even starting your spell. And then when doing the candle magic, prior to actually saying your spell or calling on the watchtowers and prior to lighting it, you need to spend some time connecting with the candle. So a lot of people just hold it in your hand and you're putting your intentions into the candle by projecting your intent into it. And so you're just thinking about what your outcome is going to be of your spell. And then the candle actually absorbs your energy into it. Mm-hmm. And then next, it's always a good idea to dress the candle, which I didn't know that this was a thing, so I'm really excited to talk about it a little bit. A lot of people use grapeseed or olive oil as a dressing, but you want it to be, and some people actually use scented oils too, but depending on the type of spell. Yeah. And so you just want to dress the candle by just massaging the oil in. A lot of times they want you to start at the top and work your way down. And when you're doing that, you're also putting your intentions into it. And it's just kind of supposed to be this therapeutic thing. So you have experience with that?
Yes. That was something I learned early on and from Wiccan books. So when you buy a candle, it's store-bought. You don't really know what's up with it, what energies it has. So that's kind of part of, like you said, pouring your intention into it and cleansing it. So yeah, I don't always do this, but I know it's a pretty common thing, but I do this sometime. Like, I know my next time I do some spell work, I want to try to carve like a sigil on the side before I go, and then anoint it with like a colored oil, and that way like the candle will have that imprint of the sigil, even like it'll stand out because that colored oil will kind of stay in the cracks.
Right. Oh, that's so beautiful.
And you can do that with like glitter too, like if you want to do carvings on the outside, like put like a eye, like for a purple candle, like a third eye candle kind of thing. And then let's say you put like glitter in the oil, you know, it'll get there in the cracks and look really cool.
That's so cool.
It's
I
like
love that
crafting.
idea.
Yeah, I love witchcraft and crafting.
Yeah, it's witchcrafting.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, and so then it typically says that if you're going to be using herbs in your spell, once the candle is dressed, then you would roll your oiled candle into the herbs.
That's lovely. I don't ever do that. I should though.
Yeah, it just helps the herbs actually stick to the candle as well. But
That's
then,
smart.
Yeah, and then just imagine the scent of the burning herbs as you're getting down there in the candle.
Yeah, and like that extra boost of magic. That is so brilliant. Because every herb's going to have its own meaning.
Exactly. And then once you're all done doing that, it's time for you to start your spell. I did read this really fun way to successfully do your spell would maybe to write out your intentions on a sheet of paper that matches your candle. And then you would say the spell and burn the paper as you're speaking. Just make sure you have something to put the lit paper in. You don't want to just be throwing that on their floor. And then you should also dispose of the ashes once you're done. So a lot of people will take the ashes and the candle and bury them together or throw them out together. Some people keep the ashes in an urn, I read, which I didn't know about.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I wonder why you would do that. Maybe as a reminder. I don't know. And like I said earlier, you should dispose of that candle, and I like to burn it all the way down to the end.
Yeah, just safely. So sometimes it's hard because I just want to light it and then like walk away, but I do have cats, so I've got to be careful.
Right. I remember when I was younger, you know, I'd let the candle burn down to the end, and then I'd take the wax and put it on paper and spread the wax around and look into it. But I wasn't actually doing a spell. So I think that now if I did that, I did the spell and then I'd pour the wax out, maybe I could read what the wax is trying to tell me about what I just did the spell about, or maybe give me some insight.
I love it.
Yeah.
I really like that idea.
That's about all I had. Did you have anything to add to that one?
I feel like you really encompassed everything, but you know what, now that I think about it, as far as candle magic goes, I would also mention like candle colors. So that was one of the main things I worked on when I was doing my original like Book of Shadows, is finding out all the candle color meanings. And so whenever I do a spell, I try to get the correct association for my intention. So like black is good for banishing negativity, you know, pink's good for friendship, yellow is great for happiness and joy, green's prosperity, money, so that kind of thing. Right. And that's really fun for me. I like looking at that, and I always go to the grocery store and I'll go look at what kind of tapered candles they have, those little cheap like dollar ones.
Yes.
So I usually will try to have like green, blue, yellow, and red for like the four corners and the watchtowers and the elements and things like that. So I get really into candle color.
I love that. It's funny because every time I do go to buy candles, I'm usually picking white, pink, and purple. Those
really?
I just always gravitate towards those three colors.
I definitely am purple. I don't get too many pink candles, but what do you like to use your pink candles for?
I don't know. I just burn them. So what are they supposed to, what's the effect of a pink candle?
Let me look at that one because I don't remember that one right off the top of my head.
I guess it reminded me of love, so I was like, okay, well, if I light this pink candle, then love would be in my space.
Yeah, let me see. I've got my little OG Book of Shadows right here. So
nice.
Give me a second.
Sure.
Consult the Book of Shadows, like in Charmed. But I have to like flip through the pages. It's not just going to go there for me.
You don't just get to use your mind.
Yeah. Okay, so I have written here, this is, I don't know how old, probably like 7 years old, that pink is good for love, romance, compassion, affection, togetherness, friendship, relaxation, femininity, honor, peace, spiritual awakening, and spiritual healing.
Oh, so that's good. Maybe that's why I always gravitate towards that.
Yeah. I was like, I think that's friendship, or is yellow friendship? Like, I couldn't remember.
Right.
So
I love it.
Yeah. I think it's good reference guide too, to be able to just like go back to this little book whenever I need.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
But as a witch, like, always use your intuition too. Like, if what the book is saying doesn't resonate with you and you think of a different color meaning, then I think that works too.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And always use what you have. Like, you don't feel like you have to go out and purchase something or spend the most amount of money on your candle.
Yeah, agreed.
In order to get what you need.
Yeah. I'd say most of the time, now that I've built up a little bit of supplies, like I usually always have some sort of candle in my house. I'm not always going to have the perfect color, I'm going to go with what I have.
Right. What types of oils do you use? You use them all, or just a scented, or?
In the beginning, I had these 2 types of oils from a local store here in town. It's like a little like Santeria store. And so I have one that was called altar oil and one that was called power oil. And somehow the altar oil like spoiled, like it just didn't last. Oh. But I've had the power oil for years and I have not ran out of that bottle. And it's like a really lovely, I would say flowery aroma, and like it's like a red oil. And I haven't needed to replace it, so I'm just using that. And I guess I'm greedy. I wanted more power. I got a power boost oil.
That's great.
But the place where I go, they have so many types of oil, an oil type for everything. Very specific needs.
Good
but
balance.
I think it's interesting to check out your local magic shops.
Right. I just don't remember this being in my store, my metaphysical store, but I
guess
sure
it's not that
some.
common.
Maybe I didn't. Yeah, I don't remember seeing that, but
because they make all theirs there at my store.
Gotcha.
Everything, like they make a lot there. They have like candles. They've got like the dick candles and the naked lady, naked man
the
candles.
Naked ladies, yeah.
Yeah, the cat candles. So like I love going there for candles and oils, like specifically.
Nice. And so because I don't know a whole lot about it still, and I didn't think to look this up, how much oil do you think that you would use to dress a candle?
Oh, like a couple drops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nothing. Here I am thinking my hands are going to be oily up to my elbows.
You're like, I don't know if this is enough. You just keep going.
I'm like, this is going to catch on fire.
Yeah, and like how you said, like different people have different ideas on how to dress the candle. Some books will tell you to start from the center and then go up, and then start from the center again and then go down. Right. And I remember I met this older witch woman, like maybe my first year into Wicca, because I went to like some sort of group meeting to like meet people and that kind of thing. And I was just so nervous, and she was talking to me and I was like really new, and she was just like, everyone's going to tell you to start from the middle and go up and then go down. But that's ridiculous. She's like, start from the top of your candle and go down. That's like, that's easier and it gets all the energy the right way. And she was just really cute, like how she's really matter-of-factly. And she was like, and you need to get an athame. How could you be a witch without an athame? And I was like, I don't know. And I never bought an athame. I still don't have one. I have a wand, and I would like an athame, but I'm not at this point like spending that much money on my craft. So
right.
I think in the beginning for me, reading about the Wiccan like tools of a witch, I felt like I had to go out and get everything right away, and I just don't think it's necessary. Like, work with what you have, like we were talking about.
Right. That's funny. I don't have an athame either, or a wand, but now thinking about it, I do have this really, really cool letter opener. It's this set of letter openers, and they're edged. Like, you could totally use these as little athames. They're like these ornate little sword-looking things. So
that's cute.
I could use that.
Yeah. When in a pinch, you got your letter opener.
That's right. And they even mine comes in like this leather pouch. They just look like these
wow,
tiny
that's
little...
so extra.
I know, right? They're like, I'm going to open this letter in style.
Yeah. Like, 1 minute. Gotta get my leather pouch. Like, or you just wear it like a holster all day, like waiting for the mail.
Yeah, right on my wrist, because that's how it does have this thing that you could totally put it on something. I think it would fit around my wrist. That's funny.
That is pretty
all
funny.
Right, should we move on?
Yeah, I think we're ready. Let's get on to our main topic.
I'm all rubbing my hands together.
Yes. Yes, I know you're so excited for this. So, guys,
Yeah.
I know we mentioned before, we're going to talk about the Mandela effect. And so for those that don't know, the Mandela effect refers to this phenomenon in which people remember past events differently. And it's been coined the Mandela effect by paranormal researcher Fiona Broom, when she noticed the large groups of people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s, when in fact he died in 2013. And these shared memories have since been collected online, and the number of Mandela effect examples have grown substantially over the years. And today we're going to be diving deep into the theories, the possible explanations, and even some personal experiences. So we're really excited about this, and we did kind of want to talk about some of the popular Mandela effect occurrences and some of the ones that kind of affect us and that we remember. So you really have to start, I feel like, by talking about Nelson Mandela's death. What are your memories on this?
So you said the 80s? I thought he died in the 90s. I thought that's what the phenomenon was, that he died in the 90s.
I'll Google it real quick, because when I found it, it said 80s, but I mean, what does your memory tell you?
I think it was like if it was the 80s, it was late 80s. It was like 1989 maybe. So I do remember them mostly because, when something tragic happens, at least in the 80s, it would knock out all other TV shows that you may be watching. And so then whatever thing was going on, like Nelson Mandela's death, would be broadcast on the TV, and you wouldn't get to watch your program that you were waiting for to watch. Mm-hmm. So I seem to remember him either dying in 1989 or 1991, somewhere around there, and that it was a huge deal. Like, there were millions of people who came to this funeral. There was this procession down the street. I remember all of these flowers and his wife just crying, just full on crying. And I watched it on TV, so that's what I remember. Mm-hmm. You probably don't have any memory of it, do you?
I don't. And I'm looking at the MandelaEffect.com, which is like Fiona Broom's like website. And she's not putting a specific year.
Okay, gotcha.
So I guess it could have been the 90s.
89.
89. So yeah, that was the year I was born. So I don't have a grasp, obviously, of a memory. And then I'm not a politician type minded person, so I didn't even really know who he was until I heard of the Mandela effect.
Gotcha.
And
he was a big deal when I was growing up because of some stuff that he had done in Africa at the time, and everybody thought that he was going to be something, and then he was in jail, for this long period of time. Mm-hmm. And it just made me think, and I'll kind of go into him a little bit more later on when we're talking about reasons why the Mandela effect is happening. But it just, I totally remember him dying earlier than that. So when did he really die? In 2013?
Yes. Yeah.
So when he really died, I was like, what?
You're alive?
I thought he was already dead. So then it made me kind of go back and see what he achieved during that time period. And he achieved quite a bit just by remaining alive.
The other one that I feel like was a gateway for a lot of people is the Berenstain Bears, is what people remember, but it's actually the Berenstain Bears. Mm-hmm. And I was of the age of this show obviously being a thing and having video games. We had the books, and I thought it was Berenstain Bears. Yeah, Berenstain. Mm-hmm. What about you?
I remember it both ways. So I know, isn't that interesting? As we were researching, every time I research the Mandela effect, it's like I'll remember it one way, and then all of a sudden I can remember it both ways, and sometimes even to the fact of when it changed for me. So
I have those moments too.
Yeah, so Berenstain Bears, we had my sister on, remember, and her and I were totally different ages. So when she was little, I used to read the Berenstain Bears books to her because they were one of my favorites. And that's how I remember it being. Then when my kids were born in the 90s, in the late 90s, early 2000s, then that's where I saw the switch. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, like I remember this one specific instance when I told my daughter, go get the Berenstain Bears book. And she goes, Mom, you're pronouncing it wrong. And she literally pointed at it, and I looked at it, and I was like, what? I've been saying this wrong my whole life?
That is awesome that you read it to two different generations, so you saw it both ways. I love it.
Right. Yeah.
To me, I feel like this could possibly be explained by mispronunciation or false memories. Like, this one doesn't blow my mind. Like, when this was the first one I heard about, I was like, okay, what else you got? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
let's dig a little
Agreed.
bit. Yeah, a little bit. This is the next one I have here is another really common one, is Kazam versus Shazam. And I, being a 90s kid, 100% saw Kazam in theaters. I remember that was the Genie movie that actually we have proof of, in, I guess you could say, in this reality coming out, where Shaquille O'Neal plays a genie. And everyone on the internet, they have these memories of there also being a second Genie movie at the time starring Sinbad, and it was called Shazam. And I have distinct memories of seeing the Kazam commercial with Shaq and the kid wishing for candy and it raining like candy bars like outside, maybe on like a basketball field. And being the candy fiend that I was like, yeah, this movie's awesome, it's got Shaq, I'm gonna go see it, and like begging my parents to take me. I remember going. But I also had this memory. I remember me being like elitist, thinking that the Kazam movie was cooler because it had Shaq and forget that other Genie movie. Like, I remember there being 2 Genie movies around the same time.
Right.
I don't remember it specifically being Sinbad or the name, but it sounds completely 100% fact to me that there were 2 Genie movies.
Right. So it's funny that you remember that. I barely remember the Shaq one. I knew that it existed. But I definitely watched the Sinbad one.
What?
So my sister and I had the VHS tape of
you did not.
Of that one. Yes. And so I totally remember having that movie.
What the hell
and
happens in that movie?
And when the Shaq one came out, because the one with Sinbad came out first, and when the Shaq one came out, I was like, I'm not going to watch that. This movie's already been done.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a huge thing of studios to have similar movies come out around the
Right.
same time. Like
Right.
Bug's Life and Ants. You
Right.
know? So it makes sense. But I did find this video, which was really funny. It was a modern day like interview like within the last couple of years, where this guy's like asking Sinbad about it, and he was like, I was never in that movie. He's like, I don't know why. He's like, I just started getting asked this in 2013. Everyone thinks I was in this movie, and I was not. And they even did a skit on College Humor, so if you Google it, you'll find a skit. But just take note that Sinbad is like
It's fake.
older.
Yeah.
And I did see someone holding a VHS tape of Shazam, but someone commented and pointed out that it's photoshopped. Like, his body has never looked that amazing, and that's actually, you can tell side-by-side comparison that it's like Jose, is it Guerrera? Who's a famous like boxer, not boxer, but like WWE fighter.
Oh, I don't know. I don't
but
know
like
their
when
names.
they show, I'm not 100% sure if I got the name right, but when they showed the side by side, like he's wearing the little sweatbands, and so they kind of look like genie armbands, like from Aladdin.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. But people swear by it. Like, do you remember anything about the movie scenes or anything about the movie specifics?
My sister watched it all the time, but I just remember that he was in it. Like, I don't remember sitting down fully watching it like every single day. She used to watch it all the time, and I would be in the room, but not necessarily be watching. You know how sometimes that happens when a kid's watching a movie. You're not constantly watching the movie with them. But I do remember him being in there, and I never liked Shaq. I'm sorry to say that for all you listeners who are a big Shaq fan. But so for me, it was like I always loved Sinbad. So why would I watch the Shaq movie?
Yeah. I was kind of the opposite, only because of the influence of my dad, who was a big basketball person. So to me at the time, I remember being like blown away that someone like Shaq would be in a movie, kind of like how Michael Jordan was in Space Jam. I was just like so into these NBA players being in awesome movies.
Right. Plus, I can say I do remember the little boy in there was Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and only because my sister had a crush on him.
In Kazam or Shazam?
In Shazam.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, that's funny. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say JTT and Sinbad in Shazam, because that's a big actor, you know?
Right. And at the time he was young. Yeah, he would have been really young.
That was his time. Yeah,
this is time period.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
This next one I added to this list because it blew my mind, which was the painting of Mona Lisa. And I remember being a kid, and in the 90s, like all the time in cartoons, like Mona Lisa's picture would be in there, and they would like make references to it, and they would show her little face. Like, she was always talked about as like having the slightest of upturned like smile in the corner, but was she smiling? Like, it was a debate. People
Yeah,
were like
total debate.
A complete debate. And if you Google just Mona Lisa Mandela effect, there's a great side-by-side comparison of her with a slight smile but very serious, and then next to it, it's a picture of her with just what it is to this day, which is, to me, she's straight up a happy, smiling person.
Right. This one blows my mind too.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah,
I get what you mean.
If you look at her, that's not a debate. That's
right.
Corner of her mouth. It's a half smile, yeah. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't look that somber or serious. Like, she has a freaking upturned smile.
Right. And did you take art in school at all?
We actually never talked about Mona Lisa in school, but I did take art in school.
Okay. So we talked about Mona Lisa in school. So she was a big debate when I was growing up too. And it was funny because I remember maybe 5 years ago, my kids running in, Mom, tell me this. Do you think Mona Lisa smiles or not? And I'm like, no, she does not smile. And they're like, boom, you're wrong. And then they show me this picture of her, and I'm like, no. Like, I'm floored just looking at it, like.
Yeah, the same. It kind of gives me, like, a panic feeling, because I'm like, what does this mean? This doesn't feel like a false memory. Lots of people like to label it like Mandela effect kind of thought process as well. You know, as humans, we don't have that great a memory. And I agree with that, but I have a pretty good visual memory, and I don't think that this current version of Mona Lisa looks like much of a debate at all.
Right. I wanted to know, is there a possibility with this one that maybe the original painting was stolen at some point, and then an imposter painting was put in? Or
even restoration. That happens all the time.
Yeah, or restoration. Because they have done a lot of, like, I even read some article that they did, like, my words are not going to be correct, but they did this, like, scan of the photo, and so they could see if there was anything underneath. Because a lot of old paintings, it's like you'll have the regular painting, but there's something else underneath. And so I do remember reading something about that.
I just read, like, this week that one of the theories was that there was another woman behind her.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah.
And there's obviously, you could go a whole episode talking about, like, Da Vinci and the encoding and the secret messages in there, but...
Oh, yeah.
So
another time, another week.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one that really, really messed with me was the fact that Ricky Ricardo in the I Love Lucy show apparently now has never said, Lucy, you've got some splaining to do.
That is fake. That he always said that.
That was like his catchphrase.
That was his catchphrase.
My dad said it all the time.
Yes, mine too.
My mom watched that show all the time. I watched that show all the time.
Yeah.
And, like, now they're saying all he did was say, Lucy, which I definitely remember him doing.
Yes, of course.
But where did we all come up with this tagline?
Yeah, why would we make that up?
There's memes of it, you know?
Yeah.
Are we just being, like, racist? It's like, I don't understand.
No. It's just like, I started thinking that with some of these, it's like, okay, fine. Maybe it's because we didn't have the internet at our fingertips at the time. But I don't know. I can't say that all of these are just because we didn't know what we were watching, or we didn't have the knowledge.
Well, and I mean, like, why do we all say it? Where did it originate from then? Because, like, if you go to I Love Lucy websites, like convention websites, that's the first thing I saw on the page. It was like, Lucy, you got some explaining to do. It's the blah, blah, blah event. And then, like, there's all these memes. I think that's just, like, when you think of I Love Lucy, that's the first thing people say.
Right. And I mean, at least in my time period and your time period, that let's say it wasn't in the TV shows and it was just something that he said when they were on an interview. But we never would have seen that. Right.
And this next one, too, I know you found this one.
Yes. There's this thing in the Matrix where Neo and, oh my gosh, my brain is not working all of a sudden. Neo and the guy.
Morpheus?
Yeah, Morpheus.
There we go.
So Morpheus and Neo are sitting in that room where they actually see that effect with the cat walking by, and they have a conversation in there. And he says to him, Morpheus says to Neo, what if I told you everything you knew was a lie? And then he goes on to say Yeah, I mean, he's like talking about everything about what's in the Matrix that is all these little things that he sees.
And you can just hear him say it. What if I told you everything you knew was a lie? Like, and that is a huge internet meme.
It's a huge internet meme. And more than just the internet meme, everybody remembers this line. And they could go back now, and it's not there.
The only thing I could think of is that I know for 100% fact that there are a lot of times where there's movie trailers made that those specific scenes and lines do get changed from when you're watching the actual movie in theater. But if that were the case, that would have been on YouTube. Like, you could have found that trailer. Right.
Or even if it had been like, you know, sometimes not everything makes it into the final cut of the movie. But there are extended versions of the Matrix. Plus there are deleted scenes. I mean, the Matrix series is a huge thing. Yeah. So there's all these behind the scene footage.
And oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, so even if it didn't make it into the final cut of the movie, it would at least be in the behind the scenes, but it's not.
I know. And I was trying to Google, like, what do the Wachowski brothers say on this? Because I think it's interesting to ask, like, who's alive, what do they say?
Sure.
I couldn't find anything about it, but what I did find out was that they're both transitioned now. And I was like, wait, when did this happen? Like, both Wachowski are now identify as females. And then there was a subreddit that was like, when did this happen? I only remember one of them being transgender. And then like someone's comment was like, dude, they just came out at different times. And then I was like, oh.
Right. Yeah.
But I was like, oh, okay. So they've never commented on it. I asked my husband, Wayne, because he's a huge Matrix fan. Like apparently in high school, he walked around in like a leather Neo jacket, like with glasses, thinking he was in the Matrix. See that. Yes.
Oh, I can totally see that.
Real attractive. So I asked him, and I was like, do you remember this line? He's like, yeah, I remember this line completely. And in his memory, he was thinking it was in the scene where the girl in the red dress walks by to distract him. And so I was showing him that scene we were watching on YouTube, and I'm like, look, it never comes up, and he never says it. And he's just like, I was like, what do you make of that? Because he's a skeptic. So he was just like,
right.
He couldn't think of anything to say. He was just like, I don't know, but I don't really care. I don't think it's the Mandela effect. And I was like,
Wow. He's a total skeptic, though. Skeptics are going to do that.
Yeah, but I love asking other people, especially skeptics, what do they remember? Because they're going to be they're going to be truthful and honest, like what their memory is. So it's interesting.
Right.
That one blows my mind.
Yeah, totally. So then the next one that I found too was Kennedy's assassination. This one's a big one. Some people only remember there being 4 seats in the vehicle, and some remember 6. In the 6-seated vehicle, it was Jackie, Mr. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, right? Yeah, and then Lyndon's
it was
wife.
Like the Texas governor, whoever that is.
Right, and then also the 2 people, the guy driving the car and the CIA or FBI agent who was with him. So
yeah, 6 people.
Some people remember that, but because I used to be infatuated with Marilyn Monroe, and so
same.
For me, it was like, if I was infatuated with Marilyn Monroe, I had to be infatuated with Kennedy. And everything I knew about Kennedy was that he was this progressive president who wanted to get us out into space, and he wanted to learn more about that, and then he was killed, you know?
Yeah.
And there's all these conspiracies about his death, which we'll do an episode about this eventually. But,
we will.
But yeah, in my memory, just from pictures, I mean, obviously I wasn't there for the initial event, but I do remember only 4 from the pictures.
Yeah, the 6-seater looks so unnatural, and I was finding out that those were these weird little seats that could, like, they're called jump seats, like they would come up and down.
Could be added in.
Yeah. And I'm just like, it doesn't even look like they have enough leg room when you look at the photos of it. And if you had asked me casually, I'm not a huge into it. I haven't gotten into even the conspiracies on it, but I would have been like, oh yeah, 4 seats, of course. And then when you watch like certain reenactment shows, they only have 4 seats in those reenactment shows.
Right. And also like in museums and stuff, there's only 4 seats. So it seems to me there's residual
I'm kind of curious
about
because I looked into where's the actual car. I watched one video that claimed to have the actual car. And it had the jump seat, but then it was like it had a roof and it had these like bulletproof glass. And they're like, yeah, we upgraded all this and changed it right after he died. And we add the roof because we didn't ever want anything like this happening again. And we painted a different color. And I'm like, bullshit. I'm like, who would keep that car? That was a crime scene. And then another site said that it was destroyed.
Right.
And the other weird thing is that if you look at the Life magazine cover of the bloody car,
it's only 4.
It's only 4.
Yeah. So the other thing about Kennedy is that his whole assassination, it's more than just the vehicle. There's also video now showing that it potentially almost looks like that his wife was the one who shot him. But I don't know if you've seen that. So that's also what people are saying could possibly be a Mandela effect.
I find that
who actually killed him.
My knee-jerk reaction to that is just to be like, how could you think she would do that? Was she that bad about Marilyn that she would shoot him in the face? And I don't think at that time they would really place something like that in a woman's hands. Because she looks calm, like she's shaking people's hands before, like she doesn't look like a nervous woman. And to do something like that so blatantly in front of people, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I just can't see. She loved him so much. I just don't. I mean, from everything I read, that I can't see her doing that. But there are people out there who suggest
I've seen the footage. I've seen people break it down, and they're like, "Now look, it looks like she's handing a gun." And I'm like, I don't see it. I just see that she has very white, flashy hands because she's wearing white gloves. Like, I don't see the flash of a gun. But like we said, we want to talk about this maybe in a full episode. So we'll dig deeper, so and I might change my mind.
Right. And so my last one I have, and this one's a huge one for me because I have a vivid memory of this one, is there was the space shuttle Challenger that exploded. They're saying that it happened in 1986, but in my memory it was 1984. And I know that you weren't born then, so I don't know if you have any memories of this at all.
No.
So there was this woman named Sally Rice. She was a teacher, and it was a big deal that she was going to be that she was an astronaut and was going up in the Challenger. So in my time period, we were all going to watch it together. Like the whole school was going to come in and watch it together in the lunchroom. Mm-hmm. So I was in the 2nd grade, and in 1984, and this is so fun. But my teacher at the time, I even remember her name, Mrs. Bouchond, she had one of the dads who worked at like an ice cream place bring us all the empty, big, giant ice cream barrel buckets, like those brown buckets that the ice cream's kept in. Uh-huh. And he some that had never been used, and we turned those into space helmets. And then we took them in with us to watch. She was really excited. She wanted us to be a part of this because it was a huge thing that was happening. This teacher was going into space, and she really looked up to Sally Rice, so it was a big deal for us to watch it as a classroom. So a bunch of different classes met together in the lunchroom, and we're watching as it went up into the air and exploded with our little helmets on. It was traumatic. And then to read that now they're saying it happened in 1986, I was like, no, because that would put me in the 4th grade, and I hated my teacher then. So, no. And I didn't have the little helmet. No. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around that one.
Yeah. And I mean, it's only a 2-year difference, but as a kid and when your life is spent in a classroom, those years are very different. Right.
And it's a vivid memory to be, especially, we were doing something that I enjoyed. Space has always been a huge thing for me. I've always been enamored with how much is out there in the universe. So to find that they were going up and a teacher was going to be there. And at the time I wanted to be a teacher. There were just all these things that fell into place that just to read now, 1986, I would have been 10 in 1986. No.
Right.
Not in my memory.
Like another thing that comes up in false memories and the Mandela effect is the logos and like company names. These ones don't freak me out that much because I feel like things change. But like I know a big one is like Kit Kat with a dash versus no dash. What do you remember?
I remember it both ways.
Okay, so maybe they did switch. I remember it with a dash, but they're saying that never happened.
Right.
And then with like the peanut butter Jif, some people remember it being Jiffy, but I like totally remember the jingle, like Mom's like you choose Jif, choose Jif. And I ate peanut butter like all the time, so I know for a fact it was Jif. What do you feel like?
I remember them both ways.
You're no help.
I know, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. But I feel like there's reasons for that. So These are some other like top contenders of movie quotes that I just wanted to say real quick because I know we have so much to cover. But the fact that now in this current timeline, in the movie Silence of the Lambs, they're saying that Hannibal Lecter never said, "Hello, Clarice."
Which is crap, because I know that they said that. I used to make fun of my daughter all the time when she was little. Her dad and I, since her name is Clarissa, we always used to call her Clarice.
Of course.
And that's how we would say it sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, there's no way he didn't say that. They even reference it in another movie, Cable Guy. Like, Jim Carrey is like, "Hello, Clarice." Right. So, that one, no. And then Star Wars, everyone always remembers, like, they always say, "Luke, I am your father."
Yes,
but
that's what I remember.
If you watch Empire Strikes Back, Vader says, "No, I am your father." And I remember the moment when I learned that. And I was like, I grew up on Star Wars. I literally can't remember the first time I saw it. Right. Star Wars just was. But when I was like in, I'd say middle school, I went through a phase of watching it again and appreciating it with more like an older lens. And Empire was such a good movie when I was older because I really got into the romance, this weird like father relationship and like Luke's story. Like I just connected to it more. And I remember hearing him say, "No, I am your father." And I was like, what? We're all saying it wrong? Right. And just thinking that was so funny.
Exactly.
So I guess it's possible that somewhere these pop culture quotes get misquoted and then we just continuously do it over and over and over. That's a possibility, but it just doesn't feel like it's like, how did these things start?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how they started. Okay, so I potentially have a Mandela effect. I'm not going to say it's a Mandela effect, but I mean, it's just something odd that happened to me and Clarissa. And it's going to sound really out there, but I need you to be open-minded about it. So there was this one day back in 2012. It was like December 2012. And at that time in my life, Clarissa would spend 1 week with her dad and 1 week with me. And it happened to be a week that she was with her dad, and I went and picked her up. And we always drove the same way home, as most people do. And that particular day, I wanted to spend time talking with her about what was going on in her life at that time. There was something traumatic going on. And so we needed to discuss it and come up with a solution as to how we could fix what was going on with her. And so we're driving down the road, and there's a specific road in the town that we live in that goes by Enchanted Forest.
The best theme park ever.
That's right. This tiny little theme park. Anyways, so we're driving down the road, and I've driven this road, mind you, since I was 18. I've been down this road.
Enchanted Way, right?
Enchanted Way, yeah.
Ooh, that's so
Enchanted
cool.
Way. So I've driven down this road countless times, and when, especially once every other week, I would take this route, to go get the kids from their dads. So I know this road like the back of my hand. So I'm driving down the road, and we're talking, and I noticed this car. It was a red Jeep that was coming towards us, and we're getting to the point where it's almost the end of the road, and we're going to stop at the stop sign. And at that point, we typically would take a left. So I'm gearing up. My mind is changing. We've stopped talking because I'm trying to focus on my driving, and I see this red Jeep coming towards us. And then all of a sudden, and I remember looking at the clock because prior to seeing the red vehicle, because I was like, okay, this is what time it is. When I get home, this is what time it's going to be, and this is the things that I have to do when I get home before my day is over. So anyways, I'm driving, I see the red vehicle, and then all of a sudden, I see this kind of like mirage. You know how when you're in the desert and you look and you see a mirage, like a wavy...
Yeah.
Like wavy, like it looks like liquid. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the distance. It sort of looked like that. And the red Jeep was coming through that towards us. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, our vehicle went back down the road towards the beginning of where the road started. Like we had just turned onto it. Like I was in a loop. We both looked at each other, and I was like, wait, what just happened? And I looked at the clock. I noticed there was a almost 16-minute time difference.
Oh my gosh.
Like it was 16 minutes in the future.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I didn't see that red vehicle near coming towards us anymore. The stop sign. I mean, I was just in a different part of this road, and I know, like I said, I know this road like the back of my hand. I could drive it in the dark. I can drive it in my sleep. I know this road. And to see that mirage and then all of a sudden be at the beginning of the road instead of the end of the road.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I'm not going to say it's a Mandela effect, but my life after that changed.
Right.
I got home. My relationship, I went home to a house that I know very well, to a family I know very well, and my family, their attitudes were different towards me. My job was different. I went to work the next day, and my job had changed slightly.
Did you even know what you were doing? That would be horrifying.
I had to relearn how to use certain parts of the computer. It's like I forgot a job that I've been doing for 6 years.
That makes no sense. And I mean, for your home and your family be different, is there anything you want to disclose there, or is that too personal?
The relationship, I'll only go into this. The relationship between me and my husband had changed, and it was not in a good light. My relationship with my friends had changed, and it was not good for me.
That sucks that you somehow got into a worse reality.
Right. My relationship with everybody around me was different, and it was not in a good way. And I felt different. I started getting these headaches. I started these headaches were horrible. I spent hours and hours in the doctor's office trying to figure out what was wrong. I would just get these massive headaches. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I was getting these it felt like my head was almost on fire, on the sides where my eyes were at, and no doctor could figure out what was wrong with me.
Weird. I wonder if other people have ever experienced that.
It's crazy. I've never really heard too much about people saying anything about that, but when we were preparing for this episode, I actually started hearing other people saying, these are the symptoms that I've had. And I was like, no way.
Gosh, that's crazy.
That's the symptoms that I had.
I wonder if that's just your body's getting used to a slightly different environment and different things.
Right. You're acclimating. My whole body changed. I all of a sudden, overnight, it seemed like I gained 80 pounds.
Oh, damn.
I gained all this weight seriously within a short amount of time.
Within
it's like
16
you see
minutes.
pictures. Yeah, 16 minutes I was fat. That was a lot of food. No, but seriously, yeah, there were just all these changes in my life and the way my body was and the way that I felt.
That is mind-blowing.
It felt like my world had been torn apart just from this. And in my mind, I didn't connect the two. At that time period in my life, I didn't connect that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And then maybe once you realize that realities could be slightly different, it makes sense to think that that's what happened to you. You slipped into a different reality. Right.
And it took me years to figure out what was going on until I came across this YouTube video of somebody talking about this effect, the Mandela effect. And then I was like, holy crap.
I mean, it's a good thing you went through it with somebody else, because if you were alone, you'd probably start to doubt everything.
Right. And she remembers everything that I remember. We've talked about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really disturbing and terrifying. I would be so scared to come home one day and face a different husband, different friends, different relationships. I mean, the only way I feel like it would be super awesome is if everything was better somehow and you had a mansion. Right. Yes.
But it wasn't. I feel like I didn't fully acclimate to this place until about 2016, maybe the end of 2016. So it took that long for me to get my bearings.
Yeah.
And having all of these memories that were different.
And what do you think happened?
I don't know.
Do you think you switched with a different Wendy?
I don't know. My daughter and I have talked this out, and we determined that it might not be up to us to know what happened. I've done tarot readings. I've done a lot of meditation. I've talked with my guides. I've asked them to show me what happened, but I don't think it's up to me to know. I even did hypnosis, a lot of hypnosis. That's originally why Clarissa and I started doing hypnosis together, was so that I could figure out what happened to us And I don't know if it's up for me to know the true reason at this point, or it might not be attainable to me. There may be something that I'm just not fully seeing or grasping, or maybe I can't process it yet.
Maybe in the other reality you guys died or something.
Right. I thought that too, because I've had other instances where things have happened where, you know, I thought I was going to be in a serious accident and then I wasn't. Like something happens. And I hear stories about this all the time. People say, I was in this car accident and my car was there and then it wasn't there. I saw that mirage looking thing, right? But what if that was a portal? Because it did kind of look like, if you're thinking back, I see that red vehicle that was coming out of that mirage.
Oh my God. What if you switched places with them and that was a different car and that was the other Wendy?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. See that red car coming towards us and we're going towards it.
It's like you either died in a collision or you're switching places. These are my two theories as of right now. But of course, like you said, nothing's that cut and clear that we're not meant to know.
There's so much out in the universe that we can't grasp. And because we're so skeptical about everything, and either we're science-based or faith-based. And I'm sort of somewhere in between, where I believe a little bit of faith and I believe a little bit of science, and I like to mash them up together. So it's hard. I don't know. I don't know. Even though I've experienced it, I can't put words to what it possibly is.
So let's try to look into some potential causes, because these are fun to theorize on, and we can see what makes sense to us.
Right.
So I know we want to talk about CERN a little bit.
Yes, CERN.
Yes.
This place opened in 1954, and CERN actually created the World Wide Web. It houses a Large Hadron Collider, which everybody calls the LHC, and it's constantly running advanced technological experiments. I mean, they've just done so much there, and I know you did some research. I'd really love to hear what you found out.
So for people that don't know, like me, CERN is actually this European research organization. They have these large computing facilities, and they're used to store and analyze data from experiments, and they just purposely simulate events. And they're ramming particles together to track the results, and they study dark matter and antimatter. And antimatter is really dangerous.
It is. And have you seen those pictures where, like, there's something circular up in the clouds up above CERN?
No.
That there's almost like these portals. Yeah, Google search CERN portal.
Oh, Lord.
And it will show you these things up above CERN that you're like, is that a portal? Could that be a portal? Or is it just weather phenomenon?
There's a lot of like circular things in the sky, really creepy imagery here. And if they're not manipulated, then that makes absolutely no sense. I have to be a skeptic sometimes with photos just because who knows what people are faking, but those look super creepy.
They look legit.
Yeah. And they study microscopic black holes. And there's this whole crazy quote on their website about like how they think that using black holes is a way for them to reveal extra dimensions. So if you were to have micro black holes, they were colliding them together, it would just create events, and they would open a door for unknown possibilities. So it's like they're always talking about and making hints at creating weird events and opening portals.
It's just crazy with them. I mean, they're dabbling with stuff that potentially we shouldn't be. So one of the things that CERN does is they have been trying to find the God particle inside the Higgs boson, where in the Large Hadron Collider, they've been colliding these particles together to try to create this, what they consider to be the God particle, which is a form of antimatter. And this is what they believe that the universe stemmed from. Yeah,
and that's really crazy. Like, what are you messing with? And I've heard some people say that very thing could also destroy us.
Right, exactly. Because, I mean, it's great to think about these things in theory so that we could advance the world, so that we can advance our lifestyle. But what are the repercussions of us trying to test this stuff?
Yeah, and I was reading that, like, 1 milligram of antimatter equals 1,000 atomic bombs. So, like, one grain of rice-sized piece of antimatter is equivalent to 30,000 Hiroshima bombs. And they're transporting these things, like, on vans.
Right. And what they don't tell you usually, I mean, you can go onto their website and see this, but their facility is ginormous. It's huge. It goes all the way under the ground.
The Mandela effect thing, to tie it all in, is like people think that they are opening these weird portals. Some think they're even opening portals to hell, and that they're just doing these weird experiments that are causing these rifts in times and like alternate realities to like blend into each other. And a weird like fact I found out was that outside of the building there's a statue of Shiva. And Shiva is actually a part of like this Hindu trinity of gods that represent creation, the upkeep, and the destruction of the world. So the two other gods are Brahma and Vishnu, and Brahma's the creator of the universe, Vishnu's the preserver, and Shiva is the destroyer. I'm like, why is the destroyer of the universe your statue?
Right.
So there's a lot of conspiracies and distrust with CERN. We don't really know if they should be doing these things. A lot of science is like that. Like, they just want to see if they can and figure out how it works. But what are you going to do in the meantime? Like, you're making all this stuff that can destroy us.
Right. I mean, even if they're doing it at this very small, minuscule level, it doesn't mean that it's not going to have repercussions.
Yeah. So that could be opening up like other space times that exist right now, and in another dimension, they're just like CERN's opening them up, and that's just how we have these different memories and different timelines.
Right. I can't get behind that they're trying to open up a portal to hell, just because I don't believe in heaven and hell per se, as the way that I just don't believe in the same way that Christians believe heaven and hell exist. It's not the same kind of wording I would use.
I could believe that they're trying to either find out what created the universe or opening portals.
Right.
That totally makes sense.
Just so that they could time travel. Yeah. It makes sense when they're, because they not only want to time travel, but they want to find out what these other universes are, because there are parallel universes that exist, and all of science just believes that they're out there, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I found a quote from Stephen Hawking, and he wrote like on this before his death, that we are not a unique universe. So he really thinks that there's multiverses going on all the time, and that we have more than one universe and an infinite number of more parallel universes that contain another you, and they're probably all like different than you, the direct opposite of what you are going on. Right.
But somehow all weirdly interconnected. I think every time I think about that parallel universe and time travel, I always think of The Flash, because not just the TV show, but the movies and the comic books. I think about all the multiverses or all these timelines that he opened up by traveling. So what if they have done time travel and they're opening up these other timelines?
Right, and you can like flux in and out of them.
And it's just causing this and you were just causing this catastrophic event to occur.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And like, that's a huge thing in comic books, is the multiverse, and so I feel like that is a really easy way to wrap your head around it, is thinking about the alternate, like Peter Parker's from the latest like Spider-Man movie. And I guess another theory that people say that could be the Mandela effect is just time travel itself. So, like, do you think people mean that there's just a time machine and they're going back and trying to change events, such as like Kennedy's death?
Right. And so let's say they did go back. Let's say they were trying to change whether he died or not, but they weren't successful. And no matter how many times they tried, just the fact that they were there, even if they were just going to observe, not to change, that in itself is kind of like a butterfly effect. Just taking yourself from this time period to back then, or in the future, you know, wherever we go, it's going to create a different type of timeline.
Right. And like time, they always say, is not linear the way we think about it.
Right. It's not from point A to point B. It's like
a circle.
Yeah.
The other theory that I think completely makes sense is if we really are living in a matrix, and this is also known as the simulation theory.
Right.
And the simulation theory that we're living in a simulation, and some people think it could be like built by this advanced society, and that this could explain deja vu and the Mandela effect experiences. So maybe when you're having deja vu, it's like a key to know that you might be in another reality, or you've experienced this before. And it could also just be like a glitch in the matrix, like they say in the movie. They even say, like, if we are in a simulation, we would never really know. There's no way for us to know. Which, I think it was an Elon Musk. He was quoted, like, saying something about we would never really know. And it's, like, the huge probability of us being in a simulation, which is just creepy.
It is, right? But there's got to be somebody who's running it that's in the game.
It makes you think of the
Sims.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's somebody who's in there who's just watching, from the sidelines, but occasionally inserts themselves into the main storyline.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, here we are. I don't know if I believe in the Matrix. It's hard for me to wrap my head around. Sometimes I think that's what it is. Sometimes I think it's not.
It makes everything feel so empty and meaningless.
Right, and meaningless.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I can't think that's what it is. But if we think of life as leveling up, so maybe it could be even when we die, it's a different level to the story. Our life doesn't end when we die, so maybe we're just leveling up to a different story.
That's creepy. And also kind of makes me think of that movie, the Truman Show, like we're just in a reality show for entertainment kind of thing.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah. And the weird thing about the simulation theory is that it's kind of just programmed for you as the individual. So just like a video game, like it's the program's only loading what you can see. So it's like loading as you go.
That's a freaking lot of story.
Yeah. It's so weird.
But that's a lot of story for everybody because there's so many people who are constantly being born and dying and
But what if they're all fake and you're the only real one? Like, it's just so creepy.
Oh my god!
Like the Matrix.
Guess that explains the cookie cutter.
Yeah. Like you're the one that they're programming this information into. Maybe like you are in that pod sack, like freaking Neo.
Yes, but I would like to think that you and I are individuals and that you're not just a part of my simulation.
Of course, that's creepy, especially when you think about romance and friendships. Like, if everything around you, that's two conspiracy theorists to really live your life by. So even if you are in a simulation, well, fuck it, enjoy it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Eat your cheeseburger.
What other theories did you want to go over?
Okay, one of the things that people think it might be is a mass hysteria or mass psychosis, and I can't really get behind this one. The fact that, I know we don't fully understand what the brain is like, but it's hard to think that if I'm experiencing a psychosis that I could then make you believe my psychosis and then we're both crazy together. I just can't get behind that. Mm-hmm. There was another one where I learned about this woman called Cynthia Sue Larson. She believes that the consciousness can change the reality of the world because everybody is born with a consciousness that then when you think of the collective consciousness, we're all changing things to make it reality. So if we dream it, we make it a part of reality. And so this one kind of made me think back to the Mandela effect itself. That Mandela, he passed away, right? And then all these people were mourning for him. Millions of people were mourning, and they're like, he's not dead. He's not dead. We want him to be alive. He's alive. He's alive. And then all of a sudden he was alive. So what if the consciousness made that together to bring him back to life so that he could create good things in the world?
I mean, he must have been pretty awesome. I feel like there's a lot of people that kind of thing would have happened with. You know what I mean?
Right. But I don't think it was just him. There were other people along the way that this has happened to. I've remembered lots of people who've died that actually didn't die. So some people even have an instance where their friend has died or their family member has died only to come into this Mandela effect that all of a sudden that person's not dead anymore and that person's in their life, or vice versa, that this person was in their life and they find out the next day that they're dead, but they have no memory of them dying 10 years before. So, I mean, it could go either way. Why that happens, I don't know. Did kind of want to bring up, we have this end of the world 2012 Mayan calendar. I mean, we all remember in 2012, there was this thing going around, the Mayan calendar was coming to an end because they thought that there was going to be a catastrophic event that happened. This is when I started having problems, was in the fall of 2012. According to Wikipedia, this catastrophic event that was going to happen in the fall of 2012, actually it was December 21st, 2012. They say various astronomical alignments and numerological formulae were proposed as pertaining to this date. A New Age interpretation held that the date marked the state of a period during which Earth and its inhabitants would undergo a positive physical or spiritual transformation, meaning that we would all gather together in this consciousness, and that's when we start talking about people waking up, start seeing things for what they really are. And so there's all these stories about people starting to wake up and realize what life is all about and where we are into the world. And so some people think that maybe it's not that we're waking up to see our place in the world, we're waking up in a different world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that kind of sounds like what the time shift is doing.
Right.
Is that you're definitely shifting parallels. It's just kind of like the reason why is the hard part, and accepting it as a reality. Because to some people, this sounds completely crazy.
And for those that it's happening to, I mean, I've heard people's events saying that they had children and they woke up in a different reality where they didn't have children.
That would be heartbreaking.
But they remember their names and they remember their lives together. And some people say they travel back and forth between these planes of existence. So who knows? I don't know what the truth is. I don't know what the reasoning behind it is.
I did see one theory that, like, if you are kind of in that awake state and you're looking into things too closely, the universe reacts to being observed, like scientifically. If you look at it on a quantum level, it reacts to being watched, and like particles change. Like scientifically, they have found this out. There's just so much outside our universe and what it all means that we can't understand. And reality shifts is so beyond our control, it's almost terrifying. Especially for someone like you who had a huge instance of it. Yeah. Like for me, it's mainly just like movie quotes that are now gone. That's my greatest loss is Hello, Clarice.
Right.
So... And I was reading a quote, too, that was kind of, someone was saying, like, that's why it's really sage advice to just focus on the present. You don't want to spend your life worrying about what happened to you in the past, like anything that was bad or that gives you anxiety. And don't stress about what's going to happen in the future. And really all you can do is live in the present and just try to be okay that way.
And that's kind of where, if you're awake to your life, if you're living in the moment and you're awake to your life, that you're not worried about all that other insignificant stuff.
Yeah, right. Like, does Pikachu's tail have a stripe on the end or not? Like, these things really
and
aren't that big
what's
of a
the
deal.
Point of that?
Yeah.
And is it there to just distract us?
True.
You know?
True. This could be something, if they were, there's just so many theories. So as far as like between jumping through realities, parallel universes, time travel, CERN, which one do you think might cause this?
I think it's kind of several together, but it also could be just something that we don't know. Our brains can't grasp what really happened, and the science isn't truly fully at the capacity where it can explain to us what happened. Yeah. And plus, we're just people who believe in the Mandela effect are shrugged off by mainstream science. They just think that we're all crazy. Yeah. But there are some scientists who are slowly coming around to the idea that wait, this is something else entirely. Right. Let's look into this. Right. And so now I think that they're going to start studying it a little bit more. Yeah. And the outcome of it, I think we're all going to be shocked when the outcome comes. Either we're going to say, oh, that's all it was, or we're going to say, holy crap, you guys messed with my life.
Oh, yeah. Like, I believe in parallel universes and multiverses personally, so it would make sense for me to think about if one collapses, it's going to merge together somehow with ours. Right. And blend together.
Right, but that's sad. Oh, that's so sad, because then some people die and some people live.
Yeah. But I also know 100% that our memories aren't that solid. Like, not very many people have photographic memories. And nowadays, the way we store information is completely different than it was before computers. I used to know my friends' phone numbers. And now that everything's at our fingertips, they've been doing studies that you can see that people just kind of like, things go in and out of the brain more quickly. Because I can just type it in to check something. And if we are a society that's based on what Google shows me, that's scary. You know what I mean?
That is.
Net neutrality is something we lost. Like, we don't have control over what Google is showing me. And something we forgot to mention weeks ago is that when we were trying to look in aliens in the Bible, Google specifically made it really hard to find that information. I had to use...
they put a tracker on mine. I told you that, right?
I don't even know how you know you have a tracker, first of all.
Well, it was kind of like they gave me an error message saying, I'm sorry, we're now going to have to monitor what you're searching.
Oh, my God. Yes, that's horrible. And I had to go use, like, different types of search engines that supposedly aren't, like, as monitored by the government kind of thing. I don't know if they work or not, but that was the only way I was getting hits on looking up aliens in the Bible. And I was like, oh, my God, this is the first sign of me personally realizing what it meant to really lose the freedom of information on the internet. Like, we lost that. What was it, last year, or has it been 6 months?
I think it's been been a year.
Yeah.
Almost.
And so they're slowly controlling us more and more. And maybe if they're letting me find Mandela effect stuff really easy, maybe it is a distraction. Maybe it is some weird control.
That's true. you can't change the fact, like what happened to me. There are thousands of other people who have the same kind of experiences like me.
That puts it in a whole new ballgame.
Right. But I also know that some of those people that I was even watching videos of a year ago are no longer available on YouTube because they were shut down. So it makes me think that, you know, maybe their story was real and they were closed down by the government. But that's a whole nother conspiracy that we don't have time to really go into.
Yeah.
So
I hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion because it's something that really polarizes people. You're either on the side of this is complete crap and how retarded are you for even thinking about this, and then people who are so into it.
Right.
So honestly, let us know what you guys think about this. What do you guys remember? What are ones that really freak you out?
Or do you have personal experiences, and what do you think happened to me? Because I don't know.
What happened to Wendy? Yes, please tell us. Guys, well, thanks for listening. And just a heads up, we're going to be taking a week break to set up Podomatic as our new hosting site. So we'll be back February 6th to talk about alien abductions. So in the meantime, head on over to our website, cousinscoven.home.blog, and you can sign up for our February newsletter and get a spell, get some information, and just stay in contact with us more. And while you're there, check out our blog at cousinscoven.home.blog. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we're also on Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere else podcasts can be found. And send in your cauldron topic ideas, your questions, your paranormal experiences. Let us know at cousinscoven2@gmail.com.
May you find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and join each other. Blessings to all.